I want to ask you about talking about politics, because it's been an interesting few months for you in this arena. And I want to just summarize for people who have been watching your career so closely. In this last few months, you've had a few things happen, which is Ben Shapiro talked about going to one of your shows and complaining about you becoming woke, which sort of then created this.
He doesn't even know what that word means.
All right, everyone, grab your popcorn because comedian Bill Burr is once again raging at Ben Shapiro. So we have more clips of Bill Burr that we're gonna show you. So before we give you the latest updates though, let's explain how this beef got started in the first place. After Luigi Mangione murdered Brian Thompson, the CEO of UnitedHealthcare, you all remember when that happened, Burr stated that, "I love that effing CEOs are effing afraid right now. You should be. By and large, you're all a bunch of selfish, greedy, effing pieces of S, and a lot of you are mass murderers. You just don't pull the trigger. That's why it looks clean." Oh, I forgot this is a bonus episode. I don't have to edit myself. Well, in response, Shapiro hit back at Burr in a column that argued Burr had gone woke. The column was written late last year. Shapiro explained that he had recently attended a Bill Burr show in Florida. And according to Shapiro, Burr made a number of jokes about how Floridians aren't anti-gay and racist, but those jokes bombed and Burr ended his show early. Burr responded to what Shapiro wrote by saying, "All Shapiro knew is that if he put woke on what I said, he would make more money. I don't know who he is, but that guy is a..." Fast forward to this week when Burr was asked about Shapiro's comments. Here is what he had to say.
His definition of woke is white liberals' definition of woke, and they didn't even know what it was. They just took the word from black people. That's the worst thing about our people is not only do we take from other cultures, we don't even take the time to understand the definition.
Yeah.
He went there to be annoyed so he can then have something to talk about, and then he can make money off of dividing his own country.
Yeah.
Those people, it's treasonous what they do.
It became a thing online where then a certain portion of the right complained about how you're woke.
Racists.
And we're racist.
They're racist. Yeah, they send pictures of monkeys to me and my wife. They're horrible people, and they're cowards, and they never say it to your face.
Yeah.
They never do that. What I'm finding is that people keep trying to categorize what it is that you're doing. Like that idiot Ben Shapiro. No, he's woke now. He's like, I don't, that guy, someone came to me and goes, "Hey man, you should," he was trying to bring me into his fold. At one point, the guy liked me.
Yeah.
You know? And then when I didn't, then all of a sudden I'm supposed to look at that guy like he's an adult?
Okay, so that's fun, but relax. Bill wasn't just furious at Ben Shapiro. He had some harsh words for the right, but also for the left. Let's watch.
I don't want to hear left and right crap. They're all nuts. That post Me Too, where it went from people shouldn't sexually assault people, absolutely, to I don't like what you're talking about in your act, was nuts. It was McCarthyism on the left. And now you've gone to the other side on the right. And the left was so up, the right, the psycho right thinks that they're in the middle, and they're not. They're out of their fucking minds. And I travel, dude, and I'm telling you, people who lean right and lean left are chill. And we're just sitting in the middle like, when is everybody gonna calm the down? When is this gonna go back to, like live and let live?
Cenk, what do you think? Is that we're so polarized in this country right now? And I'm gonna say we've been this way for like the last 10 years at least, right? And that's, it's probably been longer than that, right? Because even when Obama was still president, there was a lot of very extreme stuff that we were starting to see back on Twitter back then. So the idea that we could ever get back to a place where things don't feel as polarized, where it doesn't feel constantly teeter-tottering, when the talking points just seem less ridiculous and a little bit more rooted in something logical. Do you think we're maybe on that path? I know that we've talked a little bit about unity between the left and the right on this show. So I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, I do. I am a little bit hopeful. First, let me get myself in trouble by agreeing with Bill Burr. I think that there was McCarthyism on the left, and I think that there are psychos on the right. But what I need you to understand is that the political spectrum is not black and white. There's not two dots on the spectrum. everybody on the right is the most MAGA psycho guy who wants Trump to be a dictator and thinks Trump is better than Jesus and hates Bill Burr. No, do those people exist? Absolutely. Are they in decent sized numbers? Yes. Are they all Trump voters? Not at all, okay? On the left, were there McCarthyites who were like, you're canceled, you're canceled, you're canceled. They canceled everybody and their mother. Of course. If you're denying that, you're in la la land, right? And so we fought against that here at the Young Turks, and we took a lot of heat for it, right? So I don't believe in canceling people. By the way, then were the right wingers then hypocritical about it? Yes, I said don't cancel Megyn Kelly when NBC canceled their show. Then Megyn Kelly turns around and starts talking about how we need to cancel this person and that person. They should all be fired if they don't agree with Trump. What happened to being against cancel culture, right? So massive hypocrisy on both sides. But remember, when we say both sides in that context, keep in mind, even if you say they're big numbers, 20%, 20%, that still leaves 60% in the middle at a bare minimum who are doing what Bill Burr is talking about. Like, Jesus Christ, man. I don't want to be with those guys and I don't want to be with those guys. And so, but what happens is media is a hall of mirrors. So it makes it seem, because the people on the left take the most extreme folks on the right and attack them. And I get it, we do it. And there's logical reasons. You don't want those guys winning. And they're bad examples and they're doing bad things and we got to fight back against them. And then on the right, they do what in their minds, in their version is, the most extreme on the left. And there are sometimes extremes on the left. And then they go, okay, everyone on the left is like that. Everyone on the right is like this. It's not true. And what's happening now is people are starting to wake up and go, oh, I got lied to by all the media who told me that the most extreme guy on the right and the most extreme person on the left are the only ones that represent their sides. Not at all true. They do not represent us. What we need to realize is that the middle of the country, I think about 2/3 of the country, actually has shocking amount of agreement. I mean, look, I can just give you this as an example. We did Populist Plank on TYT. You can get to it at populistplank.com. We'll put the link in the description box. 6 issues. So far, I haven't seen a Democrat, an independent, or a Republican disagree with any of them. So anti-war, money out of politics, higher wages, lower drug prices, lower housing prices by banning private equity from buying our homes, paid family leave. All of these are polled 2/3 or higher. And there's specific policy proposals. So that is the great majority of the country going, yeah, I mean, if we had real representatives, we would love them to pass those super popular bills. But we don't have representatives. We have people who work for corporate America, who work for the highest bidder, for their donors. So the politicians have a different problem, and the media creates a different problem by only highlighting the most extreme elements on both sides. And but out of all of this, guys, I do get one silver lining here, because it seems like the country's uniting on agreeing on one thing, which is hating Ben Shapiro. We all agree Ben Shapiro is not a person telling the truth, not a person who cares about America. All he does is, defend the donors. Their money in politics is no big deal, no big deal. You should be able to buy your politicians. Gee, I wonder if you're on the side of the people buying the politicians. All right, Jackson.
Yeah, Ben Shapiro, the same dude. They're like, if a girl's gets wet, it's because she's sick. You know what I'm saying? With that whole wet thing, like my wife told me that's a medical condition because I've never made her wet before. Like constant embarrassment. But I think that this is a pretty interesting anthropological discussion about human beings, because like one thing that I've seen a lot is people will say, I miss the good old days when people could have civil political discussions. But I don't know what days y'all are talking about, because it wasn't that long ago when white supremacists in this country were losing their minds at the idea of integrating schools. Over 600,000 people had to die in order for slaves to be freed in this country. How many people had to die, get thrown in jail, get beat up during the civil rights movement so that black people could, drink water out of whatever faucets they wanted. What about gay people and the process of them being able to exist in public without there being massive backlash? Human beings are massively tribal, so sometimes we come together in alignment with things, but for the most part, we're in constant disagreement with each other. I think it's always incumbent upon all of us to do our best to be more civil, but as far as I'm concerned, there's never been a time where people were just, we just link arms in brotherhood and we just like people have always not gotten along. We've gotten along too, or like people will say shit like, back in the day when love was real and people used to love each other. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? A 1950s sitcom? You know what I'm saying? Like in the 50s, housewives was on barbiturates and drinking themselves. You're like, no. People are people. So I think that's why it's always important for us to stand up and try to choose a positive path. But at the end of the day, I don't know what days y'all are talking about.
Yeah, I mean, it is hard because whenever you really examine any part of history, really, you will see that there is that discontent there. And whenever you were giving all of these examples of times where we weren't able to have civil debates, we were speaking calmly. We weren't all on social media just raging with our thumbs, but there were conversations about why, like, Michael Jackson shouldn't be on MTV because he's black, and this is for not black people. This is for white people, and that was in the 90s, I believe, or at least the 80s. I think it was the 90s, and the 90s. Things were a lot better in the 90s than they had been before, but that was still a valid conversation that people were having on television, and that wasn't necessarily a position that people were afraid to take or afraid to say out loud, and they didn't think of themselves as being racist. And then you look back, even gay marriage, marriage equality, that is very recent. I remember growing up, that was a huge debate. You didn't see a whole lot of LGBTQ people on television, and when you did, it was like kind of as a punchline, or it was a thing. None of this stuff was normalized. We were constantly making progress in so many areas, but at the same time, I think it was Jackson, you were saying that there's a mob mentality that comes with things. We're a tribal people, right? We have our communities, we feel safe within our communities, and we tend to feel threatened by things that are outside of those communities. But the thing is, not everything is out to get you, right? It's not necessarily a zero-sum game, even though a lot of people try to spin it that way. And the people who tend to spin it specifically as a zero-sum game are, people who believe in things like the Great Replacement theory, right? The people who feel as though other people doing better than they currently are doing means that they somehow are doing worse off for themselves. The idea that they could somehow get supplanted from their top position on whatever pedestal they put themselves up on. The thing is, it just doesn't work that way. And it makes people racist, right? Because you have to distinguish people and say, I'm this and I'm better than you because you're not what I am, So you have to draw these barriers. But I think what Bill Burr was saying, and Cenk, I do agree with him that I do think that there was some McCarthyism on the left. I think we're passionate people, right? I'll say it that way. But whenever things are out in the open the way that they are now, when you have so many influencers telling people how to think, how to feel, and I don't even necessarily blame the influencers for that. I blame the people who wait to hear what their influencer will say and then say, that's how I feel about it. It's hard because there's so much information out there that it can be hard for people to parse through it, or even to hear their own thoughts through all of that noise. And maybe this is a better conversation, Cenk, for like, what do you do? Your happy hour on Tuesdays, but
yeah, Operation Joy.
I can't think of yeah. Operation Joy. But I feel like we do need to take some time to just like turn off all of the screens and just like hear what we, think about how we actually feel about things. I always say for me, I'll give you the information, you'll know how I feel about it, but that's not the story. You don't have to go with what I say. And even on the left, we disagree all the time. Here on TYT, we disagree all the time. Some of my colleagues will say something and I have a different take. And that's why you have different hosts, right? You're gonna gravitate to different people. But anyway, to bring it back around to Bill Burr's point, yeah, there's a lot of racism everywhere. There's a lot of wokeness and there's a lot of misappropriation of wokeness. And we do have to be better at just listening to each other. And I know that's an easier thing to say than it is to actually do.
All right, last things here. The problem with radicals is that they always demand purity. On the right, it's usually racial or religious purity. You know, you have to be on our team. On the left, we often go for ideological purity. So if you don't agree 100% with some sort of thing that was made up about leftist ideology, then you're a heretic and have to be driven from the tribe and canceled, etc. So purity tests are a disaster. There's no way that two human beings can agree 100% on all issues, let alone 330 million people in the country. So stop listening to people who are telling you to be pure, right? It's a dangerous idea. No, you're supposed to be nuanced. You're supposed to use your own judgment and have your own mind. And anyone telling you not to have your own mind is not trying to help you. They're trying to co-opt you. All right, guys. Speaking of which, on Sunday, my Jubilee Surrounded episode comes out. One populist, that's me, versus 20 Democrats and Republicans. So that ought to be a doozy. That's Sunday, August 3rd. We're now on Substack. Check that out. Young Turks on Substack, tyt.com/Substack. And as Yaz referred to, check out tyt.com/joy. That's where we leave stories about things that went right in our lives and our happy moments, so you can get a little uplifted throughout the day and the week. All right, guys. Now this is when we say bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.